saying,
I'm guessing she's thinking after like 2 or 3, right?
She did just say that she's calling on teams if they don't volunteer, so.
yeah, you can totally hear the conversation.
Third chapter, you can talk
Oh,
later,
okay.
because I'm recording right now. It's recording, that's why. Okay, chapter 15, I try to finish it, and then after I stop recording. Okay, chapter 15, and then we can talk about your papers and everything after.
Okay.
Global production and supply chain management. I don't know if you guys have taken your operations management or supply chain management class, but basically, let's start. Let me draw a map for you guys how the supply chain starts and when it goes towards operations management, which is the manufacture part of it. So let's say I am the manufacturer here, manufacturing on whatever, tables, whatever, manufacturing, right? I have different suppliers. My suppliers could be supplier 1, supplier 2, supplier 3. Now, the suppliers, sorry, I have to start here, because it shows this part. Okay, if I am the manufacturer facility here, I have different suppliers. Now, the problem these days is that these suppliers could be anywhere around the world, right? So you can have too many different suppliers all around the world. These suppliers, they could come from raw materials. They could get the raw materials from anywhere around the world, different continents. They get it, they process it, could be oil processed and then refined, and then I can buy it from my manufacturer. They can turn it to plastic, anything. I can buy it from my manufacturer. I will process it again. Goes through operations management. Now, operations management here, we're talking about the quality. How do we control the quality? How basically check the defects products and all that. Reduce the waste time, reduce the waste of the work. For example, labor waste or product production waste. We check all of that here and then we send it out. We send it out here to distributors. Distributors picks up here. Distributor 1, distributor 2. Any region of the world can have its own distributor. Now, in the past, all of these was only basically in one country or one continent. Right now, it's all around the world. The distributor sends it to first-tier reseller, or second-tier reseller. That one goes to second-tier reseller. And then it goes to retail stores or department stores and then to the hand of customers. So all of these have been so difficult these days. All of that is called supply chain. From the raw materials all the way to the hand of customers. All around the world, this is called supply chain. Because of globalization, that has become so difficult to control. So that's why they call it supply chain management, because they actually established in you see universities have now a new specialty supply chain management, or you see a lot of certificates, supply chain management certification. It's because of the complications that we see today. Now, you can add value at any stage, any steps of this life cycle of the product. Or you can also cut the cost too. You can cut the cost by here, operations management, reducing the cost or reducing rework. Or you can choose the least expensive inventory. Here, it's inventory, and then the distributor can pick up. So you can choose the different methods of inventory before the distributor picks up. The transportation method could be airfare, could be a seaport, anything transportation method. These are all how you cut the cost. The other thing is to choose your suppliers. That's why we go right now to other countries, because natural resources is less expensive here in the United States. If you want to have refined oil here, it's much more expensive than other places around the world. So that's why you want to go some other places around the world. Manufacturing facility, that's why we're taking our manufacturers to China, because we're reducing the cost again. So at any stages of this cycle, of this chain, you can reduce your cost. Or you can add value. You can actually make it much more expensive. very high quality suppliers. You can have contract with high quality suppliers. You can have, you can choose the most expensive inventory, which you're going to talk about it. There are two types of inventory, just in time, just in case. Just in case is a little bit more expensive, which bigger companies use it. Just in time is a little bit less expensive. Now, after it's in the hand of customers, think about this. All the defective products, all the return products, or even recycle, everything, they all go back again to here. So you need to have it again, another reverse cycle as well too. That's why that's why they created a new field for in supply chain management, because we're going to talk about all of these, how we manage the supply chain. Now, Amazon is one of the largest ones that we can talk about, right? Because it distributes all around the world right now. Walmart, that has been like for the last couple of decades, 3-4 decades, it has been the largest retail stores. Right now, it's suffering from Amazon's competition because they cannot compete with Amazon. They're trying to focus on their website, mostly their online sales, Walmart. So they are a very good example of supply chain. So production activities, production is here, the manufacturing part. Activities involve creating a product or service, and then supply chain from procurement all the way to the hand of customers. I'm curious to see what is this one. Not that I usually log them, but I don't know what they are, and I cannot check it on my laptop. Sorry, that's why I'm checking here.
Did you know global supply chains are not just about transportation? No matter where we are born and grow up in the world, we're taught at a very young age to organize our daily lives into smaller pieces, often in a sequential way based on time increments. This instruction is most often carried out in an informal manner, first by our parents, elementary teachers, then perhaps by sports coaches, music instructors, other activity leaders. The idea is that breaking down projects into parts or simple steps will make us focused, efficient, and effective in completing tasks. In contrast, organizations involved in global supply chains cannot be involved in all aspects of the full global supply chain. Rather, supply chain professionals are generally involved in just one or a few links and connecting nodes of a global supply chain. Now, global supply chains are not just transportation systems. They're total value systems that work best if all aspects of the chain, links, resources, connecting nodes, are strategically leveraged. For the global supply chain, the idea is to work toward helping the total chain to succeed, not toward maximizing the success of an individual organization in the chain.
So you guys probably know that when your car, the plastics around the window and door, they come from the largest plastic producer, natural resources in Congo, Africa, but they go to Malaysia to be processed, and then automobile manufacturers purchase it. All the electronics are made in Korea. The seat is made in one country. The windshield, actually, I think it's Indonesia. Engine, each country that we say made in Germany or whatever, it's designed and engineered, the engine part of it. And then most of them, the ones that we see here, they're assembled in Mexico. So think about this from the time that comes from Africa, from natural resources, all the way when it's processed in Asia and then sent to Mexico for assembly and then sent here to us. Think about how much complicated it makes. So that's what global supply chain is very important for businesses today, for companies today, because it's a lot of cost. Now, what is upstream and downstream? This is, for example, my main entity. This is my upstream. Anything here is upstream. Anything below, it's downstream. If this is my entity, right? Now, if I see, for example, I have a manufacturer in China, and my supplier, let's say hypothetically, is in Indonesia, right? So I see that a lot of my competitors from all around the world, they're buying from that Indonesian supplier, right? You know what I can do? I can go to Indonesia and buy my supplier. That would be the upstream acquisition. Because now I'm cutting all the competitors out of the market by controlling the entire supply of them. They have to buy from me, and I can increase the prices on them. Or I can do downstream acquisition. I can buy if I'm in a country that everybody's competing over a distribution center. For example, in Japan and India, it's very difficult to get into their distribution systems because it's totally monopolized by the local people. In Japan, it's highly sophisticated, but only local people. And in India, it's not sophisticated. That's why it's grouped down to local people. So again, both of them are monopolized by local people. Now I can go to those countries and it's very difficult. I can pay them and buy my distribution center too, or a warehouse. So I'm cutting basically all access to all my competitors as well. I can increase the quality by buying them, or I can cut some costs. Again, if you buy it, you're cutting costs because you're not buying from them. It's not marked up anymore. Now, how you can increase the quality, as I talked about, how to improve performance, reliability, increase productivity, as I said. You can either increase productivity. Now, when you want to reduce the cost, when you're producing in higher volume, you're reducing the cost, right? So again, as I said, economies of scale. If we have 40 students in this class, or we have 20 students in this class, our cost is exactly the same thing, right? So if we have 40, let's say you guys are our products, the products is higher, we're making more because our cost is the same. If we have 20, we're making less because we're not changing the cost anyways. So by producing more, increase productivity, you can make more, or lowering the rework or scrap works. For example, if you're implementing those quality operations management quality control systems that we're going to talk about, those all came around from the United States and Japan, and they have been implemented in the United States and Japan, working towards reducing the rework and scrap costs, which is basically if it's defective products, it has to go out. It could be internally detected, and it's a cost to throw it out, or it could be externally detected. It's out of your manufacturer, either in retail store or in the hands of customer, and it's detected, and it's returned back again. All of these costs could be reduced by implementing those quality control systems. Lower warranty costs, again, if you're sure that your product is very effective, and we have like 99.99% of rework done, if we implement the total quality management control, then you know that you don't need to pay so much money for warranty. They're not going to return it back again to you because you can have 10 years warranty, but necessarily they're not going to return it back to you to fix it for free for them because you're sure that quality was high enough. By doing those, you lower manufacturing costs, you lower service costs, and that's how you can increase your profits. Here, we're going to talk about supply chain management, how we can increase the quality of products. This is in manufacturing part of it, when you're manufacturing the product. In 1950s, Tagumi, T-A-G-U-M-I, was the first Japanese system that was implemented, but it was not used in a mass. Only it was implemented by a person and not really utilized. Later in 80s, in Motorola came up with total quality management. But it was used by Japanese the first time. Motorola came up with it, but it was never used at Motorola. Japanese used it for the first time, total quality management. That was in early 80s. Late 80s, in the United States, they came up again with Six Sigma, which is even right now it's being used, and probably you guys have heard like Six Sigma certification, Six Sigma, that they have a lot of different programs. It's because it's very effective and it reduces the defects, their scrap work, their rework, everything to 99.9997%. So that means 3.4 defective products per million products. So therefore, it's reducing the manufacturing costs tremendously. That's why it's very important. By developing Six Sigma, total quality management, which was heavily used in Japan, was overshadowed immediately. So and then right now it's mostly commonly used Six Sigma. In United States, we use Six Sigma, but in Europe, they're using ISO 9000, which 9000 stands for the standards. However, each industry has its own number. You can say 9001, 9003, 9005, whatever we have, it's based on the industries, which is one of the highest, shows one of the highest quality standards around the world because of European standards. Now, any country that wants to do business with them, manufacturing business with them, send their products over there, they have to pass ISO 9000. International Standard Organization has to basically approve their standards to be able to work with Europe, which is higher quality than Six Sigma that we currently use here. Two other objectives are important for international companies too. One is be able to responsiveness to demand of customers, like you can adapt it immediately, and customers' demand change very quickly these days. So they can actually request something, so the manufacturer is processing, and it's in the hand of customers. Next month, because there's other competitors in the market, all customers can shift to another product. So now you have to again be able to shift it. That's why, because of that, just in time is the inventory program that enables you to process immediately, to switch very fast. Why? Because you don't have a huge warehouse. You don't have a huge inventory. Just in time means every time they order to me, I will start processing. I just ask them for time, like 1 month or so, and then I will process and send it to them, prepare and send it to them. If not, you have to do just in case, which means I don't want to risk it. If I have a big customer, I want to be ready to send it to them, ship it to them, the order within 24 hours, just in case. Well, I don't want to lose my customers. Big companies, they can do that, but small companies, they prefer to cut the cost by using just in time, because inventory cost, warehouse cost is a lot. It's very a big budget of the supply chain management. But the largest budget between here, from here on, it's actually their transportation costs. Now, Zara is a very good example of just in time, the fashion industry company. That's how they started. Everything, first of all, was made in Spain, like from the design and all the way to suppliers and manufacturing and warehousing and sending all around the world. Started originally in Spain. And it was like this until still 10 years ago. Right now, they have changed it because they couldn't be competitive. And I don't know if you guys have noticed that how much their quality has reduced. The quality of their products has tremendously reduced versus like 15 years ago, which was really good. But they're using just in time because usually every time you go to Zara's stores, they have new items. They don't keep the same items because they don't have huge mass manufacturing facilities. That's their operation strategy. Now, these are different factors that companies have to consider. Location economies. Locations, country factors, we go first over factors. Country factors, technological factors, and production factors. These are the three different factors that companies have to consider. Country, technological, and production factors. Now, let's see about country. Basically, the most important thing is that to look into countries that are stable, right? Politically stable, economically stable, culturally stable, and also countries that can help you reduce the cost of manufacturing, right? You probably wouldn't want to produce in the United States and sell it in Latin America. You prefer to produce in Mexico, sell it in Latin America. You don't want to produce in Europe and sell it in Middle East or North Africa. You prefer to do it vice versa. Why? Because you want to make sure that you reduce your costs. It has to be conducive to your business. Also, you have to consider the barriers of entry, the transportation costs, regulations affecting FDI, and expected movement in exchange rates. All of these is what we talked about. Remember, trade barriers. We said if you have a lot of barriers with that country, it's unstable, you probably want to stay away from that country because you don't know what's going to happen next, right? Venezuela, for example, it opened up for a while in the past like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, but it's an unstable region anyway, so it started back going down again. Cuba, in President Obama's time, we have been given, U.S. citizens were given a little more leverage to work with Cuba, but again, it changes all the time with administration, so it's not a stable, established economy. That's why you want to stay away from those. Transportation costs, again, if transportation cost is too much, too heavy, so you don't want to do that. For example, right now, as I said, we can produce, whether in China or Mexico, a lot of times these days they're bringing back their manufacture to Mexico because of transportation costs, as well as increase of minimum wage in China. Right now, the minimum wage increased so much that Mexico is a little bit less than China. However, one of the reasons that they would like to still keep in China is because of the stability. The corruption is less than Mexico, and you can find skilled laborers in China too. And infrastructure is there, established. Regulations affecting FDI, remember we talked about this. If the country does not allow you to invest in that country, in the host country for 100% ownership as a foreigner, you have to have a local partner. So you have to consider all of those. And we talked about exchange rates too. If you believe your exchange rate is very volatile, up and down, you might want to actually do hedge funding, lock it in the beginning for the next 5 years, or you want to stay away from that market. Usually, the volatile exchange markets are the worst to get into. Very surprising. You can see a lot of surprises with that. Technological factors, fixed costs. You want to make sure that by producing more volume, huge volume, you're basically reducing your fixed costs, just like what we talked about. Minimum efficient scale is that the higher the minimum efficient scale is, the better. That means a manufacturing facility, how much capability manufacturing facility has. Manufacturing facility might have 300 per unit a day to produce, right? Or 500 per day to produce. This is their minimum efficient scale. 300 is one manufacturing facility's minimum efficient scale, and let's say competitor can produce 500 a day. So the higher minimum efficient scale is better for your production because you can produce higher, more. Now, technological factors, again, one is lean production, one is mass customization. Lean production basically refers to productivity increase by reducing waste. Remember we talked about learning curve, that we said the more you stay in business, the more you learn, and the more your laborers, workers stay in business, the less error they make, right? So the more work, the more basically production we have, and when we stay in the business, we're reducing, and also operations management, one of these that we talked about, reducing the rework and scrap work. The more we implement those, we're reducing our cost of manufacturing by lean production, which means waste minimization. Now, the other one is mass customization. Mass customization is when you have, a lot of times you can have, by mass customization here, you can have flexible machine cells. You can have a big machine. This is not for huge companies. These are for mid-sized companies that it's worth it for them to do this. You can have actually one main manufacturing equipment or cell with a switch, or with couple very small changes, you can produce different items. For example, think about tissues, right? Tissues, we have like box like this, and we have cubicle boxes like this, right? With a switch, you can, but they're all exactly the same. Everything is exactly the same. It's just the shape of the package that is different. With just one switch, actually I read a case study, they said during the morning they produce one type, and at night they switch it and they produce, at night to morning they produce another type. So they don't need to, and that was a mid-sized company in the Middle East. So they don't need to basically buy two different equipments. They can do day and night and reduce their costs, which is customization. They're producing two types of products. So a lot of companies around the world, and again, developing markets mostly use customization, mass customization, not much in developed world. Let's just talk about an example in Nestle Turkey that says like Turkey is one of their best market. Nestle is a Swiss company, and they were talking about how Turkey is one of their best market in the world. Now, production factors, there are a couple different factors that we need to consider. I think I did talk about the value to weight ratio, which is if you want to produce, for example, pills, because pills are very low weight, you can produce them in, let's say, in India, which we do that right now. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are in India, because the shipment is not going to cost that much compared to the value of the product. But if it's like a furniture items, which is only $400, $500, probably you need to produce them close to here, to geographic proximity needs to be close because of the value that is not really high. And universal needs could also be, universal needs are, for example, pills are very good, medications are a very good example of universal needs. Everybody needs the same thing and you don't need to customize it at all. Locating production facilities. Now, if the country is expensive country, you need to have one central location in that country and try to produce there and distribute it in the entire country. And we're talking about one country. Now, if the country is cheap and it's geographically vast, so what you do is that you have different locations. Because it's cheap anyways to build a manufacturer. And you can build each one for each region of the country and send it. For Brazil, for example, it's very heterogeneous. People in South have different tastes, people in North have different tastes. It's better to have, and it's not very expensive either, so it's better to have two locations. If you want to do in Europe, in Germany, very small country, very homogeneous, and very expensive. You better have one central location. So decentralizing is for basically countries that are cheaper, less expensive. Now, strategic roles of production facilities. Global learning is historically companies, manufacturers, multinational corporations. Always they started, everything was centralized, was used to go from the headquarters. They used to open, for example, manufacture in China. They had to only keep the relationship with the United States. And then they wanted to, from headquarters, they wanted to open another one in, let's say, Vietnam. They had to keep their relationship with the United States. Those two were never working with each other. Right now, companies have noticed by actually connecting those two links together, we're reducing the costs. First of all, they know each other's cultures better. They are in the business for longer. Let's say China has been in business 5 years. We're just establishing another one in Vietnam. So they can help each other much better, and the cost could be a lot less by traveling them back and forth and training rather than the United States getting involved. So that's called global learning. It's better not to go back all the time to a centralized location. The power could be decentralized, could be established anywhere. Now these are different types of manufacturing facilities. Offshore factory is the factory that basically we send a manufacturer somewhere else around the world in order to lower costs than producing at home. Source factory is basically to drive down the cost in the global supply chain. Server factory is focusing only on a specific country, or this could be anywhere around the world. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be out of the country. Could be anywhere, but to reduce down the cost. Server factory is specific to supply for a specific country or region around the world. Contributor is also the same thing. It actually focuses only on specific country or regional market around the world. However, I don't have it here. However, you can customize it. So that's the main difference between server factory and contributor factory. They're both designed to focus on one region of the world, but this one is not only for customizing. Contributor is also customizing too. Outpost factory is basically an intelligence gathering unit. Just to let you know, in corporate world, especially in oligopolistic world, where it's like only automobile manufacturers or telecommunication manufacturers, all of those do have intelligence unit, just like CIA intelligence unit. They spy on each other. They open a manufacturer next to each other. They pretend they are working there, and they're not doing anything with another name. They're just collecting information from their competitors. So you see that it says, it was for one period, I remember 3 or 4 years ago, all of us, we used to get email about, you want to be like a secret shopper or something like that, right? And then they will pay you if you go to a store and you pretend you're a customer. So companies hire you basically to go to their competitor customer. They say it's our company too, but you never know it's their company because this is a third party who is hiring you, so you really don't know who's your employer. They basically say, oh, can you go to Apple Store, for example, and ask these questions, and how do they answer and what they do with you? Or can you go to blah blah restaurant, eat this food, and what was, for example, the fish? And can you ask the waiter, like, how is the fish cooked? Do you like it? Blah blah. So all of these questions, they will give it to you, and you get paid for it, basically. So those are secret shoppers. But they have beyond that, their executive team also becomes many times spies too. They go to competitors, they pretend like they're someone else, they take their family over there, and they get to know like basically everything. Oh, I purchased this one, it was actually broken, can you open it? Like, how do you guys do this one? They do reverse engineering for them. It was a group of Americans for photocopy machine that they couldn't figure out, so they go actually to Japan. They buy the product. The guy actually was saying in his memoir that we brought it to our hotel. Inside the hotel, we started reverse engineering to see what is going on, why we cannot get it. So to take it back to store again and say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get this part. Like, how was it done? To see how the cost, they wanted to see the cost. How can they keep the cost so low? So this is basically the intelligence unit, outpost factory. And lead factory is for research and development. They start creating new products all the time, finally, to come up with the final product. Trying new basically products. Now, the problem with producing other parts of the world is they have these problems to high employee turnover, because employees are usually not loyal, shoddy workmanship, poor product quality, and low productivity. Now, a good example is that, first of all, a lot of turnover. People might not be, laborers are not skilled. They could make a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes. Now, a case in point was Microsoft, when they opened in Hyderabad in India, they've noticed that a lot of turnover happens. So they started asking management team, if you can ask, why is it turnover all the time? They said, because you unfortunately offer them stock options. High stock options, not really high pay. They switch to competitor as soon as they learn from Microsoft and they can put in their resume that they work for Microsoft. Everybody wants them, right? And they pay a very good price. In India, it's more common not to basically pay them stock options for the future. What they like is like, right now I want higher pay. I need to pay my